Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to Second Son Woodworks. My name is Caleb. While I was back home over the holidays, trying to survive the cold, I decided to get into sewing, to just give it a shot. I figured, why not? Also, this gave me the opportunity to make gifts for my friends and family instead of buying them. So I went down to the local Ace Hardware and picked up this really big piece of canvas. It is usually used for a drop cloth when you are painting, so that I could have lots of material at a pretty cheap price to start sewing. I was lucky enough to have my mom help me out with getting started. We pulled out her old machine that she had been gifted from her mom to get started. Unfortunately, the machine didn't last too long as a couple of the pieces started to break. So then I borrowed my sister-in-law's newer brother machine that worked out pretty well. You can see here that I am folding over the edges of this piece of canvas that I'm going to be making into a tool roll-up bag, kind of like the one that was at the very first of the video. Ironing over the edges makes it so they stay until you put a sew line through the canvas. My original idea was to make a tool bag out of leather, but once I started doing research into how much leather cost, I decided that I should wait until I'm a little bit more skilled with the sewing machine and making the thread lines before I spend a bunch of money on leather. So I decided to do the first few tool pouch bags, these roll-up pouch bags with canvas, which turned out to be a really great option. If you've never used a sewing machine, I would highly recommend giving it a try. It's really fun and actually pretty simple. Likewise, the applications of being able to use a sewing machine with your other woodworking projects pretty much endless, and my mind is rolling through lots of ideas of how to incorporate sewed materials into furniture pieces. So if you have any ideas of how that might be done, throw them up in the comment section below. I also want to welcome all of you folks out there who are new to my channel. This is Second Son Woodworks, a collection of DIY project videos, mainly woodworking, but as you can see here, I occasionally throw up other videos on other types of crafts and DIY sorts of projects such as sewing. So go check out my library and welcome to the channel. I got the idea to make a tool pouch like this with canvas from the YouTube channel Old Town Fabrication and Design. They put up a video back in May of 2020 on how to do a DIY canvas tool chisel roll up with a leather strap. I'll throw up a link in the description below for this video. It's awesome. Give it a watch. In their video, they actually dye the canvas, which I'll be doing with the next tool pouch, but since this was just the first, or this was the second tool pouch that I was making, I decided to wait on dyeing the material just so I could get a bit more practice. But stay tuned and I'll be releasing another video on a tool pouch that I actually dye the canvas and make it look like leather. It's a pretty cool DIY hack, so stay tuned. If you're going to give sewing a try, make sure you have a good pair of scissors, as you will be using them often. Like I mentioned before, I originally attempted to use my mom's machine, which was an old Singer sewing machine that was one of those ones that folds into a tabletop. It's a really cool old machine, and it worked for a second, but as my mom and I were attempting to do different sewing lines, etc., a couple of the pieces started to break. And I think it was just because it had been sitting for so long and it was so old. But luckily, my sister-in-law had this brother machine, which is a newer machine. It has a foot pedal and it works really well. But I wish I could have got that Singer to work because it's so cool. One of the benefits of me trying to fix the other Singer sewing machine, my mom's old machine, was that I originally thought that there was something I was doing wrong with loading the spool of yarn or thread, onto the machine and wrapping it through, the section where you follow the symbols where you lead the thread through the machine to thread the needle. So I thought at first that I was doing something wrong, but it turned out that there was something wrong with the machine. But nevertheless, before I figured out that it was the machine, I spent a lot of time trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing to try to get the machine to work. And I think as a result, I was able to learn a good amount about how the machine works just by looking at it and loading it and unloading it and putting different thread in, etc. Doing all the little things that you have to do when you use a sewing machine. This was the first time that I really had a lot of time with a sewing machine, and so quickly I had to learn some of the different parts about the machine, such as how to load the bobbin as I am doing right now. A lot of machines have a device on the top that you can switch over, and the motor will actually load the bobbin with thread, and then that bobbin can either be used up top, or you could put it down underneath the slide plate, depending on the machine. But these are all things that you got to kind of understand, or at least have a general understanding of when you get started sewing. And for me, I just used the manual that came with the Brother, and it showed me everything I needed to do. I hope that one day I'll be able to buy myself a machine and continue learning how to do different stitches and use the machine in different ways. The sewing machine is really cool. I really enjoyed getting to spend some time with one. Like I mentioned before, this was the second tool pouch that I had made with this canvas. The first one turned out actually, I think, a little bit better than this one, even though this one was my second one. But then the third one is even better, and I'll release a video on that one. And in that project, for that tool pouch, I actually dyed the fabric so that the fabric was brown and blue, and it worked out really well. It was a pretty cool process, and I was able to get some colored fabric that kind of resembles leather, but for much cheaper. So make sure you tune into that video when I release it. It was fun to be able to see my ability to use the foot pedal and clamp down the canvas and start new lines, etc. Slowly get a bit better and better as I practice with the machine doing these tool pouches. I think a lot of sewing is just practice. You have to practice, and to be able to learn how to do it, and then your thread lines will get straighter, and you'll be more exact, and you'll get faster at clamping stuff down and using the pedal and loading new thread, etc. So if you're interested in learning a bit more about sewing through my sewing projects, stay tuned. I'll be releasing another video on another tool pouch, and I hope this one was helpful. Get in the shop or get in your parents' basement and make something cool. Take care.